Satchidanandarupaya Vishvotpattyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratascharteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sadani Rasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Ketavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayonmulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Va Parerishwaraha Sadyo Hridya Varudya Tetra Kritibihi Shushrushubi Tatchana. Hari Om and greetings from Niagara Falls. Our children are getting older, and so they want to hang out with us less already. And they want to hang out with their friends more. So yesterday I was interacting with one of Shuka's friends' parents, and she was describing to me that she doesn't have time to breathe. And I was thinking about this functionally. Imagine not having time to breathe. It's a very strange functional experience. But the further implication of this, not physically, but mentally, if one doesn't have time to breathe, then that also means one doesn't have time to think. You don't have time to breathe, you don't have time to think. Not thinking in the right way or not thinking about Bhagwan is called Vismarana. Vismarana, forgetfulness. One forgets how to be happy. One forgets that they are happiness. And so what we aspire to do, at least for 1 hour a week on Sunday mornings, is to engage in smarana. To remember Bhagwan, to remember that thinking, breathing, all of this is because of Bhagwan. Smarana, or remembering the divine, is extremely powerful. We cannot describe the impact it has on us. You've all heard of Sri Kabir before. He's famous for his teachings, for his efforts to bring people together. Sri Kabir used to chant Bhagwan Rama's name. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And he did this in such a steady, sincere, strong way that he got to see Bhagwan Rama with his own eyes. And then what started to happen is Bhagwan Rama started to chant his name. Kabir, 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 Kabir. So, if you really don't want Bhagwan Rama to chant your name or Bhagwan Krishna to chant your name, keep forgetting them. But if you remember them, they will chant your name. The 11th skanda is very different than the 10th skanda. The 10th skanda is very much about Bhagwan Krishna's life, and the 11th skanda is very much about his teachings. We ended chapter 9 with Rishi Dattatreya sharing the importance of being virtuous. Do you remember the 24 virtues that we explored in our practices? In chapters 10 and 11, when one has virtues, then one can start to feel jnana. 10 and 11 are potent chapters on Sri Krishna's teachings about himself. In chapter 12, Sri Krishna senses with Rishi Uddhava that he's having difficulty To make this jnana real, so all of the 12th chapter is about sadhu sangha. If you associate with those who experience nobility and truth, it will be easier for us. Chapter 13, the foremost, Hamsa Gita, which teaches us how to separate the mind from articles, beings, and circumstances. How to do this? We have to rise above them. I've reviewed chapter 9, and chapter 10, 11, and chapter 12, chapter 13. Chapter 14 is on dhyana of Bhagavan Krishna in a micro way. This is contemplating on Bhagavan Krishna with your eyes closed. And those details are given about his hair, his fingers. And the idea is, if you think more about Bhagavan Krishna and less about articles, beings, and circumstances, that's how you rise above these. In chapter 15, as one is practicing concentration, contemplation, one may develop siddhis. One will experience new powers, like understanding people better, seeing the future. When we analyze siddhis, powers, we only want these for happiness. What is the point of having a power that doesn't contribute towards your happiness? Do you agree? Everything that we want finally relates to happiness. So Bhagavan Krishna shares in chapter 15, you can live for siddhis, but why not live for being siddha? Why not live directly for happiness rather than go through pleasure, possession, position to get to happiness? Make sense? One more thought about siddhis. I've shared with you a few times about some lucid dreaming that I experienced while living in the ashram. And I shared with all of you, I would fly so far, I would swim without needing to breathe underwater. I can only do that in the dream state. I can't do that right now. And that shows that siddhis only relate to swapna. They're dreams. They come, they go. There's no substance. Chapter 16 is how to contemplate on Sri Krishna with your eyes open. This is very much about him in a macro perspective, or vibhuti yoga. First, you have to feel Sri Krishna in a controlled environment. Then you have to feel him in an uncontrolled environment. And this is super practical because if you can feel Bhagavan Krishna in the eminent, it'll become easier to see him in the immanence, in smaller matters, in that which is more minute. Okay? 13 is Hamsa Gita. 14, what should I do with my mind? Contemplate on Sri Krishna with your eyes closed. Chapter 15, you may become powerful. Remember what that power is for. It's for peace. Chapter 16, contemplating on Sri Krishna with your eyes open. Now 17. 17 is about the varnas and ashrama. Tell me, what's an English word for varna? Color, very good. And what's an English word for ashrama? Vocation. What you're doing with your life in a certain age. Okay? So varna, your inner world's color. Varna means color, but color of your inner world. Please do not ever think that I would be describing the color of your clothes or the color of your skin. That's not what's being shared. And ashrama is your vocation. Based on your position in life, what you are doing. for all varnas. It doesn't matter what your inner world is like. Shri Krishna gives the dharma for all varnas. I'm going to reread that to you. This is in chapter 17, verse 21. Ahimsa satyamasteyam akama krodha lobhata bhuta priyahite hacha dharmoyam sarva varnikaha. In English, it is the common dharma of persons belonging to all varnas to be free from cruelty, dishonesty, thieving, lust, anger, and greed, as also to do what is good and pleasing to all creatures. Fine. So whenever you have to think about varna, the color of your inner world, try to remember some of these teachings because there's so much misunderstanding about varna. Then in this chapter, Shri Krishna focuses on ashrama dharma. Based on your vocation, what is your responsibility? And I had shared for brahmacharis, their efforts should be going towards being less concerned with your appearance. How many of you practiced that this week? Being less concerned with your appearance. Do it. You will save resources, save time, save effort. For a grihastha, one of the dharmas, one of the responsibilities is to be less concerned with mamata, which means possessiveness. And we had distilled this to articles. To be less concerned with articles. There is a time and place and energy where articles are needed. But as you mature, one shouldn't need as many articles. Remember, I shared that about sexuality. When one engages in sexuality with the right time, place, and energy, then that discipline is like being a brahmachari. Now think of the same with articles. If you have the right relationship with articles, you're still independent then. But if you have the wrong relationship, then that's materialism. That's being materialistic. Continuing, in chapter 18, Bhagavan Krishna shares the responsibilities of a vanaprastha and a sannyasi. There's different gauges of the age range for a vanaprastha. I've shared 48 with all of you. More traditionally, it's 50 to 75. 50 to 75. The reason why I've changed that is because rarely do people live so long as 100. If you live to 100, you can divide your life into quarters, but the average life expectancy for most of us will be around 72. For the typical Canadian American male, it's around 72. So divide your life into fourths then. One of the responsibilities, the dharmas of a vanaprastha, is to be less concerned with comfort. Comfort. So less appearances, less articles, now less comfort. Now some may be thinking this is very much like being a brahmachari. Being a grihastha, which is about less articles. But here this comfort is more being less comfortable internally. Let me be more specific. 2 lakshanas or characteristics of one who is a vanaprastha is non-indulgence and non-interference. Non-indulgence, that's so obvious. To care less for comfort, to need a less elaborate home, to need less elaborate vacations. But non-interference here means you let the next generations live. Let them deal with their relationships, their professions. You no longer live for your family. That's that internal comfort zone. And we're so strong in justifying that. But here Bhagavan Krishna is sharing, as he's leaving, to burn down those comfort zones. Here he says to live in a very austere way. But we don't really know what austerity means, so I'm presenting this as to burn down your inner comfort zone. Start living for more. And finally, for a sannyasi, for those whose vocation it is to be a sannyasi, I'm going to read to you in English one portion of what it means to be a sannyasi, and then I'll give you a main responsibility. She should take paces only carefully, lest she should trample over any living creatures. For the same reason, she should drink water only after filtering it with a cloth. She should speak only what has got the sacred stamp of truth. And so reflecting on this, it means that one has to live completely carefully. Even how you walk should be contributing to the welfare of the grass. How you drink should be contributing to the welfare of beings. Here is a responsibility for us to extract. It is to be less concerned with identifications. To be less concerned with identifications. We are often known as the one who lives over here, or who's gone to school for this, or knows this many people. That means there's still a little bit of care for really one's ego. But for a sannyasi, one whose vocation this is, they care completely for all. So they don't have individual identification. Makes sense? In chapter 17, I had shared with everyone the common responsibilities for all colors, how one's inner world is. And that essentially means to be virtuous. Now I've gone through individual responsibilities based on your vocation. Less appearances, less articles, less comfort, less identification. With that, we continue to chapter 19. Chapter 19 is a very cool chapter because Rishi Uddhava asks questions that we're thinking about, questions that relate to us. I am reading verse 27, 19:27. Dharmo madbhakti krit proktaha jnanam chaikatmya darshanam guneshva sango vairagyam aishwaryam chanimadayaha. That's your reference, which I will elaborate on shortly. What Rishi Uddhava begins asking in this chapter is, note these. What is jnana? His second question is, what is vijnana? Third question, what is vairagya? And fourth question is, what is bhakti? Does anyone here remember, or any of you can share in the chat, where have we seen similar questions being asked? Where? Who asks? One of you wrote Bhagavad Gita, which is a very general and right answer, but not exactly what I'm looking for. Do you remember when Sri Lakshmana asks Bhagavan Rama these questions too? When they're in the jungle, and the answers are known as Sri Rama Gita. Anyways, these are the questions. Then Bhagavan Krishna answers in detail, but he doesn't answer in the way that Rishi Uddhava asked. Here's how he answers, okay? I hope you care about what I'm sharing right now. I find this order to be a subtle teaching technique. Bhagavan Krishna begins answering in detail. First, he answers what jnana is, then vijnana, then vairagya, then bhakti. So he changes that order. Jnana, vijnana, vairagya. The point of that is when you have jnana, the way to convert that into vijnana is through vairagya. This is what you are not, so give it up. And when you do, this is what you are. Now, Bhagavan Krishna summarizes his answers, and I'm explaining that to you now, okay? He says, he answers what is bhakti first. See how the order has changed again. His summary is on bhakti, and that shows what's most important. Dharmo mad bhakti krit. What is bhakti? Bhakti is your responsibilities that help you to feel closer to me. What is bhakti? That's Rishi Uddhava's question. The answer is dharma, your responsibilities. But it's your responsibilities that make you feel closer to Bhagavan Krishna. So, to understand this in the opposite way, if you're engaged in responsibilities, but you don't remember him more, it's called Shama Eva. You're not engaged in your responsibilities, you're engaged in labor. You're doing, but you're not coming closer to being. Everyone's fine with what bhakti is. Your responsibilities with remembrance is bhakti. Next, Bhagavan Krishna answers what jnana is. And the answer he gives is jnana cha ekatma ekatmani darshanam, which means feeling awareness is in all. What is knowledge? When you feel atmani darshanam, you feel this atmani or awareness in all. That's what jnana is, which is very different than education, correct? Our education is about what we interact with, but not the spirit of what we interact with. Next, Bhagavan answers what is vairagya. And he says vairagya is when one lets go of being affected by the gunas. You let go of being affected by the gunas. And to make this very straightforward, it is to be less moody. To be less moody. The gunas are often described as the temperaments of one's mind or mood. And so those who are very opinionated, very judgmental, naturally they're moody. They're stuck in their own minds. They're unable to absorb anything. They have to talk about everything. But you giving all of that up slowly, that's what vairagya is. What a lovely answer, because when we think of vairagya, we only think of this externally. But it's such an internal practice. Bhagavan answers that bhakti is your responsibilities towards me. Jnana is feeling awareness in all. Vairagya is giving up the gunas, the moods. And finally, he answers what vijnana is. And this is deep. Jnana is feeling awareness in all. Vijnana is feeling just awareness. There is no all. That's chapter 10, 11 of Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? In chapter 10, Bhagavan says, I am in all. In chapter 11, it's just I. There's no all in I. There's just I. Got it. You all wish we were in the 10th skanda still, correct? Tell us stories about Putana. Who did Bhagavan Krishna wrestle with? How many wives did he have? And that's lovely. We know that. But it's the teachings that last forever. Okay. Continuing with this chapter, I told you, Rishi Uddhava asks so many questions. These questions come out in verses 28 to 32. This is going to be part of your raw for this week. So remember, Rishi Uddhava's questions are in verses 28 to 32. And then Bhagavan Krishna's answers are in 33 to 44. 33 to 44. How many of you are actually going to do research on this by a show of hands? How many of you are not going to do research on this? I know you're not, so I will give you a summary of some of these questions and answers, okay? Part of your discussion is going to be, who is Kripana? Who is a miser? So anyone who didn't have their hand up, for research, it's coming to you. You watch. Okay. One of the questions is, what is Rita? Rita. Now, I was looking at this word in English a little bit. The spelling of Rita is R-T-A. But typically, how do people spell it? R-I-T-A. So we say Rita or Rita, but really it's Rita. So now all of the Ritas, you change it to Rita. It's like there's a girl here whose name is Niti. Niti. And this girl goes to school with Shuka and Vyasa. So I was like, yeah, Niti's in your school. And they're like, it's not Niti, it's Niti. No, it is, it is Niti. No, it's Niti. So it's Rita, okay? Rita means truthfulness. So what is Rita? It is truthfulness. It is following your ideals. I can only validate if you're speaking the truth. But you can validate if you're following your own ideal, your own value system. Rita. Another important question is, what is dana? And Bhagavan Krishna says, param dana danda nyasaha. It's when you stop harming others. The greatest dana is for someone to feel comfortable with you. Next, labha. What is the greatest labha, or what is labha? It is bhakti. Labha means gain. What is the greatest gain? It is not external again. It is devotion. It's being dedicated. What is truthfulness? Living up to your values. What is charity? Making people comfortable, inner comfort. What is gain? It is devotion. Another important question, what is Hri? H-R-I. Does anyone know what Hri means in English? Hri means bashfulness, a sense of shame, not being besharam. So what is Hri? Bhagavan Krishna shares, when you are ashamed of your wrong thinking and wrong actions. When we think of shame, again, we make it so physical. But Sri Krishna is sharing, you internalize this when you are ashamed of yourself. That's what Hri is, to have this sense of shame. Shri in this book is defined as beauty. What is beauty? And Bhagavan Krishna shares, it is desirelessness. How can one become more beautiful? When you have less desires. Your glow doesn't come from fair and lovely or any sort of makeup. It comes from inside then. Utpatta. Utpatta means, what is the wrong path? What is the wrong path? And Bhagavan Krishna shares extroversion. Being an extrovert is the wrong path. Swarga. What is heaven? Bhagavan Krishna shares sattva. The guna of sattva, that which makes you quieter, you feel more uplifted, like you live in heaven then. Then naturally, what is naraka? Naraka is tamas. That which makes you more extrovert, makes you more lethargic, that pulls you down. It's like living in hell. Bandhu, who is your relative? Hum aapke hai kaun? So I just came from India, so that's still flowing through my through my mind right now. Bhagavan Krishna says, I'll read it in English. The true relative is the guru and not brothers and children, not siblings and children. One's true relative is a guru, and that guru is myself. So Bhagavan is sharing, who is your relative? The guru, who's really Bhagavan. And finally, this is such a complex and robust teaching. Rishi Uddhava doesn't even ask this. He doesn't ask this question, but he's asking for, please tell me what is good and bad. Tell me what's punya and papa. And Bhagavan Krishna ends this section by sharing what is virtue is not comparing good and bad. Not comparing punya and papa. So we are so stuck on these comparisons, but Bhagavan is sharing, if you keep going with these comparisons, that's all you'll think about. Likes and dislikes, correct? So what is guna? What is virtue? It's to rise above even the sense of relativity. Interesting? There's so many more questions. These are just some, and I know you will research the rest, yes? Okay, I'm doing okay. I'm going to be very brief with chapter 20 also, okay? I'm going to read to you a famous verse from chapter 20. This is verse 17. Nirdehamadyam sulabham sudurlabham klavam sukalpam guru karnadharam mayanukule nabhas tvateritam puman bhavardim nataretsa atmaha. This verse describes how precious your body is. Your body is. In this chapter, Rishi Uddhava asks who should follow Jnana Yoga, who should follow Karma Yoga, and who should follow Bhakti Yoga. I'll share more about this next week, but I wanted to end this class with, even the subtitle is called The Spiritual Value of Human Body. I'm going to read in English some of the thoughts before the verse, then I'll elaborate on the verse. For this, close your eyes. Close your eyes and put your hands on your knees. Put your hands on your knees. So it's like you're feeling your own body, okay? Your upper body is feeling your lower body. I'll try to read slowly. Just as those consigned to the purgatory desire to get a human body, so do the denizens of heaven too aspire for such a body. For it is only with the human body that knowledge and bhakti can be developed, and not with bodies pertaining to those other spheres. Therefore, a human of intelligence and insight should not desire for the heavenly regions, even as he does not for the purgatory. She should not, however, entertain any desire for a human body too, for the passionate attachment for the body will balk her on her spiritual goal. So understanding that this human body, though capable of taking her to the highest, is in itself mortal, a human of discrimination should strive with great alertness for the attainment of the spiritual goal even before death overtakes her. When Yama-like destroyers of forests cut down trees heartlessly, the birds having their nests on them fly away easily to places of safety if they are without much attachment for their habitats. So also a person should tremble on realizing that the tree of their lifespan is being cut down with the passing of every night and day. This will help her be free from all attachments in life, become desireless, and be established in tranquility by contemplating on the Supreme Being. And now I'm going to read in English the verse I just chanted to you. Suppose one has obtained a human body, which is the first of all requirements for the higher life. Though very rare, this ship of a human body, very well built, has now become available to one by his good fortune, and it is captained by a competent guru and favored by the wind of my grace. If, with all these favorable conditions, a human fails to utilize them to cross the ocean of samsara, they should be called a suicide, a killer of their own spiritual self. You can open your eyes, relax. I was just sharing with the Cleveland children the fact that they're in our assembly on a Sunday morning shows that they're doing good things and that they're a good person. The fact that you just heard these verses, 12 through 17 of chapter 20 of the 11th section, shows that these verses describe you. You have this precious opportunity. This boat is being captained by our trust triangle, our guide, our map, our divinity. And if one doesn't remember Bhagavan Krishna permanently in this lifetime, I don't just mean on Sunday mornings or when things are good or bad, but you permanently remember Bhagavan Krishna awareness. If you don't do that, then Bhagavan has called one Atmaha. You have murdered your own opportunity. That's an extremely strong word. Oh.